And then we can get underway. Um, Sorry, the voice is a bit strained still, but I am recovering. So tonight we're gonna focus on um, last study unit of BNU. So we'll get um, into our financial calculations tonight, and then we will start with your revision from next week. Okay, so we'll finish off the basic financial calculations tonight, and then from next week I'll start putting together some previous exam papers and questions, and we can work through that for the next then 3 weeks until your exams towards the end of October. Okay. So basically, and now I see there's something that I needed to change here. So basically, the things that we're gonna focus on tonight with the basic calculations is we're gonna look at simple and compound interest. Then we're gonna do some annuity calculations. Then I'm gonna show you as, and that is nearly part of a amortization schedule as well. But we're going to look into some common examples of repayments on mortgages. So basically, if you have a 20-year home loan, or if you have repayments on cars and those kind of things. Um, but that is very much linked to setting up the amortization schedule as well. And I will show you also then how you're not gonna, in the exam, nearly need to do the whole schedule, but you will need to do bits and pieces of it. And that's why we'll look at that as well tonight. Okay, so the first component of the financial maths is looking at simple and compound interest rates. And what is important here is we'll go through what the formulas are. I'm going to share the slides in any case, so you will have the formulas. Um, but then also I'm going to look at a few examples. When we look at simple interest, remember the thing with our financial calculators, they are set up for compound interest questions. So when we work out for the simple interest questions, we will still need to use some of the basic formulas, and I will show you also formulas formulas in Excel that we can use. But again, for simple interest, we will need to nearly use the formula as is in the book, where for compound interest we can use the built-in formulas within Excel as well. Okay, so let's get into then the formula set. Okay, why didn't that want to move? Okay. So when we look at simple interest, there is two things that we need to know. The first is that they can ask us in the questions that we will need to calculate the simple interest, or they can ask us that we need to work out the future value or the present value for simple interest. Okay, so that's the two things that they can ask. Sometimes what they do is they ask you to work out the interest, and then they also ask you to work out the future value, or vice versa. But basically, we're gonna look at both steps tonight, so that you can work out the interest component if that is needed, and you will be able to work out the future value or present value depending on what they require you to do. Okay, so like last week, I'll get to an example. You guys can in the background really look at it, work with it, take a minute or two, write a few things down, and then we can go into the solution mode after that. Okay, so the first one is a simple interest rate question, and in this instance we need to determine the amount of interest that you will have. Okay, so again, nearly take a minute or two, write down the things that are needed, and then we will get to it in a minute or two. Okay, so let's see what they give us. They tell us you borrowed 5,000 Rand for 4 years at a simple interest rate of 9.5% per year. Determine the amount of interest. Okay, so we need to determine the amount of interest. They told us that the principal that we borrowed was 5,000. They told us that the interest rate is 9.5%. And they told us that it will be for 4 years. So we've got our term as 4. So 5,000 times 9.5% times 4 will give us the simple interest rate, or the simple interest that we have calculated for the 4 years, which is 1,900. So if we take 5, okay, let me just quickly check if this is correct. 9.5% times 5,000 times 4, yes, 1,900. Okay, so the interest rate that will have to be paid after 4 years is 1,900. Okay, if we were asked to then calculate your future value, so they didn't ask us to do that, but if we needed to do that, we could have just said, well, my future value is for one with the principal plus my interest that I got. So it would have been 5,000 plus the interest of 1,900. So my future value would have been 6,900. We can also test it by using this formula. So P was 5,000, 1 plus 9.5% is 4. So we could also work it out with the future value formula. So we will get 9.5% times 4 plus that to 1, so it will give you 1,38. If you times that by 5,000, you will also get 6,900. Okay, so just showing that with the interest rate or the interest that you calculate, you can just add that to the original principal to get the 6,900, or you can use the formula to get to the 6,900 as well. Yes, question.
Hi Jane, how are you?
Good, and you?
I'm good. I don't know how to. Okay, so I have financial calculator, and I don't know how to. Okay, if I'm punching, you see the last calculations you did, the one with five open bracket one plus yes that one. I don't know
Okay.
how to punch it on the calculator. If I'm punching it, I get a different answer.
Yes, so you can't. So did you want to put it in as into the functions that are in the calculator?
Yes.
Okay, so if you do that, you can only do it when it is compound interest. So
Oh,
your answer that you have calculated now is the answer to a compound interest question. So when you use the future value, the present value buttons on your calculator, you can only use it when we do a compound interest question. Okay, so that's why important when it's simple interest that we can still use these two formulas. So then a way to put this in brackets on your calculator, I would rather do it something like this, but I'm going to show you now what we can. So what I would suggest nearly is on your calculator that you first say 9.5%, or you can say 0.095, because if you take 9.5 divided by 100, you will get that as well. So I would say take the interest times the number of years. That answer should be 0.38 plus that with 1. So then your answer is 1.38, and that you multiply with 5,000. Then you will get the 6,900. If you use the present value, future value buttons, then you should get a bigger amount than that because of a compound interest component already linked into your financial calculator.
The thing is, the financial calculator rounds off. So if I say 9.5 divided by 100, I don't get 0.095. I get 0.1, 0.10.
Oh, so it automatically does that. Okay, so let me quickly.
So I must get another calculator for the exam.
Do you have access to Excel?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so let me show you how we can do this on Excel. And then I will share this on the WhatsApp group as well, that you can just use it from a question. So let's just quickly let's copy that. Just as an example. And then you can change it whenever you need to. So when I send this later tonight, also use it in practicing some examples and things like that. So let's just say simple interest, and we remember the simple interest is the principal times the rate times t. Okay, so we've got the principal as 5,000. Let's put that right. So what I'm just going to do so that so we're going to calculate that one. So that is your principal times your interest. I'm just going to move that into it now. Okay, so there was your 1,900 that we calculated. And if I needed to work out the future value, and let's make that also a color, because what we're doing here as well is let's use the formula. Okay. So then can use this spreadsheet for your calculations as well. Okay, will that help? So the only thing that you really need to update whenever you get different questions is to update these cells. Okay, hoping that will at least help a bit. Yeah, because it is a bit of a problem if the calculators don't work nicely. Cool. Okay, so another one. So again, what we can now, I'm going to copy this question and then we can just use the spreadsheet as is. Let's just make it a bit smaller that we can just see all the info that is in here. Okay, so let's do it this way. Then we know that was number 3. And this will be number 4. So you borrowed an amount of money from Sipho and have to pay him 2,400 interest after 3 years. Determine the amount borrowed if a simple interest rate of 8% is applicable. Okay, so now for question 4, it is a bit different. So we will need to work out what that value is. They told us we have borrowed, or the interest component was 2,400. They told us 3 years. They told us 8%. Okay, so normally we would work out that interest component. We now need to get to a P. So let me first show you, because we need to change the formula a bit. Okay, so normally we would have had the interest is the principal times the time period times rate. We have had, we need to work out that, we have that. So we need to work out P. So in this instance, we will need to first do a bit of maths that we did in nearly the second and third chapters. So to isolate the principal, we will need to say interest divided by the time times rate. Okay, that will give us our principal. Okay, so we said to get the principal will be interest divided by okay, so this one was a bit different because we needed to Okay, wait, that must not be that color. Just want to make that one yellow. Okay, so we needed to calculate what the principal is. They gave us rate, years, and interest. So with this one, we needed to work backwards a bit. So what we needed to do was, from the information we got, we basically rewrote our interest formula so that we can isolate the principal. The principal was then your interest that they gave us as 2,400. And we divided that by the number of years, which was 3 times the interest rate component. Okay, and that was how we calculated the P. Okay, so that for this one, now again, I've built it into Excel, so that if you now get again a question like that, and you just need to change the interest component, automatically your answer will change as well. Okay, so that's basically two of the questions that they can ask you on simple interest. What they can also do is give you information about the interest, information about the principal, information about the time, and then they might ask you to work out what the interest rate was. So then, very similar nearly, we would have said, okay, to isolate R, we would have divided on both sides with P times T. So then we would have been able to calculate R as well. So depending on what they want you to calculate, one needs to manipulate this simple interest formula to get to the answer. I'm hoping that is a bit clearer, but I will also get a few of these so that we can practice for the exam. Okay, the next one is, so firstly we look at simple interest. Now we look at the compound interest component. Compound interest, we can use calculators. Everything is built into the calculator already, so we can just substitute information. But if you need to have a formula, your future value is basically equal to your present value with your interest rate and your time period that you need to multiply it by. Okay, but again, in the examples, what we would be able to do is we will get a future value, we will get a I, we will get an N, and then probably need to work out present value, or we might get present value and we need to work out future value. Okay, so let's look at the information of this question. So to travel, Mr. Lito borrows an amount of money after 20 months, he pays back a once-off amount of 15,000. Okay, so he pays back the 15,000. We know he borrowed it for 20 months. And we need to look at the interest rate. Interest rate is 13%. So now we need to work out the future value. Okay, so this on my financial calculator, sorry, we need to work out present value. So 15,000 will be my future value. Then my time period is 20 months. My interest rate is 13%. And then my present value that I work out is 12092, which is that option. So what is in here is, if we used the formula, this is just to show you on the formula, but also then if you have the sharp or the HP, what I've done is included the calculations for that, so that you, again, when needed, you can use this to practice other problems as well. Okay, so let's do another one like that. So here they tell us that we borrowed 100,000 at the beginning of a period. They told us it is for 5 years. But they also told us it is compounded monthly, and we need to work out what is the monthly repayments. Okay, so it is 12 times per year. So it's just important that we include that, because 5 12-month periods will give us 60 months that we need to work with. And we've got the interest rate of 12%. And then we need to work out what is your monthly premiums. So not your future value, but what your monthly premiums is. So here we will start by saying 100,000 is your present value. Remember, we need to say it's 12 times per year for 5 years, which makes it 60 periods, 12% interest, which will then give us a monthly premium of 4.44. And now I'll also again just show, depending on which calculator you're using, You can see the process for the sharp. I've got the HP, so this is the process that I just followed. Now, where I said 12 times per year, 100,000 present value for 5 years, and then, oh, sorry, that was interest per year, not, and then your PMT, that would have given you the answer. Okay, so also if you're more comfortable using the calculators, or sorry, not the calculators, the formula, and substitute it into the formula, here's the option for you as well, but I prefer to use the HP or Excel. So let me take this one and let me just show you what I would have done in Excel with that, so that we also have a compound interest question. Let's just make that, okay, that's too big. Okay, so in this instance, we needed to work out the present value. The information that we had was your interest per year, which was 12%. We had it, your periods per year. Let's get that right. N was 20. We had a future value of 15,000. Let me just check if we have all the information for the present value. So that was our interest rate. I think maybe the interest rate must divide it, but there wasn't a payment per month. There was a future value. Okay, so I just want to do this for you so that you can also use it. But the thing that makes Excel in this instance more difficult is that the interest that you are calculating or using, you need to change it from a yearly to a monthly interest. So remember, it was 13% interest per year, but because we do it on a monthly basis, we needed to change that yearly into a monthly. So I'm going to just make a note here. If you want to use Excel, just remember on your interest rate, change yearly into monthly. Okay, because that is very important. Because again, if you have it as a different period, it will be wrong. So that sometimes, again, then if you understand the financial calculator a bit better, you can always use the financial calculator. But again, I will share both these methods with you as well. Okay, then just want to make 100% sure. I don't think you guys are doing simple discount. I didn't pick it up in the study guide, but if you do, and if you come and see it in any of the prep questions, very similar nearly to simple interest. What you will have is a principal or face value number. You will have a discount to work with, and you will have a term that you will work with. But again, I don't think you guys are doing it. But if you do, I also just included one of the questions. So let me just add the formula here, and we can do it with a formula. So Itamaleng wants to buy a new computer. He takes out a loan of 5,000 Rand at this annual simple discount rate. So we can say 5,000 times the simple discount rate, 0.12, and the period is 5. Okay, this is an interesting one. 5,000 times 0.12 times 5 is 3,000. Okay, this is a bit strange. Let me just quickly, because I feel different here. Okay, no, so I'm rather just going to take this out for you, because this is definitely not part of, if I now look at what was needed to do, this is definitely not part of BNU's syllabus. So I'm going to keep it in but hide it, and I will share, but I'm just going to say do not focus. Just that if you get something on simple discount, it will be this component and not this question. Okay. Just if there is something, but I don't think so. Okay, so that was simple interest and compound interest. Then we move on to annuities. And with annuities, annuities basically a savings that you make or an investment that you make. Um, you normally make it on a monthly basis, but you can get annuities that happens on a yearly basis. But what is important about the annuity is that it is a recurring payment that is being made. Okay, so when there's a recurring premium that's being made, there's two things that we will need to know. The one is they will tell us that we have been paying 500 Rand into an annuity on a monthly basis for 5 years with the interest rate. We need to work out what the future value will be, or they can give us exactly the same info and then ask us to work out what is the present value of that annuity. Okay, so that is the two components on annuities that are important. If you need to use the formula, this is basically if we need to work out the future value, you will see that monthly or yearly payment you will use with a bit of other information. So your interest rate is needed and your time period is needed. If we need to work out our present value, exactly the same. We need to get the monthly payments. Then with that also interest and the period that goes with it. Okay, so future value, present value of annuities. So let's get into a question on that. In this one, let's see what they give us, and then let's see what we need to calculate. So Decaleri wants to give her brother a 10,000 gift on his graduation day in 4 years' time. Okay, so on his graduation day, 4 years from now, she wants to give him 10,000 Rand. Calculate the money she should save on a monthly basis. So we will need to check on a monthly basis. So there's going to be 4 years of monthly payments, which is going to be 48 periods. It's going to be at the interest rate of 9.5%. We've got what the future value is. We start off with 0. So present value is 0. And we actually want to work out what is the monthly payments. Okay, so if we wanted to use this formula nearly, we know the future value. We want to work out the P. So if you didn't have a calculator, we would have needed to do something like this. So that's why I would rather use a calculator, because I don't want to say future value divided by this big thing. So let's rather use the calculators. So I know my future value is 10,000. So 10,000 future value. We know that the present value is 0. So 0 present value. Then we know it's for 12 periods. So 12 times a year for 4 years gives us a total of 48 payment periods. It is at the interest of 9.5%. So our PMT would be equal to 172.06. Is that one. But also, again, if we needed to if you worked with a sharp, here's the things that you would put into your calculator. If you used the HB, this is what you will need to put in. And if you wanted to use nearly this formula, you could have used it with basically calculating it. But again, I'll rather use one of the two financial calculators than trying to work out this problem. Okay, so what we've done here is ask you to work out a monthly payment by giving you the other information. They could have given you PMT and asked you to work out future values. So instead of telling you it is 10,000, they could have given you exactly the same and say monthly premium was 172 rand. And you need to work out your future value. Okay, so that is one of the ways to work out with annuities. And let's just check what is next. So the next one is on amortization. And what I've done here is just to add a bit of information on normally how things are calculated. So we will start off with an amount. They will tell us that we need to make certain payments. We will need to work out what the interest is. We will work out that principal. That is basically take your payments made plus your interest will be your principal. Okay, so you can each time those two, if you add the two of them together, it gives you that. Okay, but so this is just a quick example of how we need to remember to work out your interest. Your interest, we will need to go back to our first interest calculation. So remember, interest was your principal times your interest. Here it was 6%. All that they did now with this calculation was to add the periods per year already into into that calculation. Okay, but remember that is nearly from what we started off with, how we work out interest. So it just comes back again. This interest earned component was that. Okay, so what we identified in the simple interest, we will use in our amortization table again. Okay, so let's look at a question on this. So let's see if I can make this a bit bigger. Okay, so here they tell us Chanti wants to buy a new truck that will cost 350,000. The bank lends 80% of the price of a truck, so he gets 80% of this at 11% per year, compounded monthly for 7 years. Remember, compounded monthly, so that is 84 periods. So the first thing that they ask us is, what is the monthly payment of a loan? Okay, so let's see what is our value that we are lending. It is 350,000 times 80%. So the loan that we are, or the money that we are lending is 280,000. Okay, because basically 80% times 350,000 is 280. So that is what is going to pay back. So let's quickly put that into the formula. Again, 12 times per year, 7 years, 84 periods, 11% per year. Okay, so let's quickly show. So we've got the 280,000 as your present value. We've got the interest rate as 11%, as I said. Just check what I do here. So that is 280. Why do I get a different number? 280,000 is my present value. 11% is my interest rate. 12 times a year, 7 years, gives me 84. And then PMT, then I get 4,794.28. Okay, so that was your 12 times per year, your 280,000, your 11% interest, and your 7 years. Then if we calculate PMT, that is what we get. There's also the formula that you can use, but again, it's very similar to one of these formulas. If you want to use the formula, you can, but very difficult to remember and not to make a mistake when you're using this formula. So this was now on the 280 that needs to be paid back. This was the monthly payments. So let's see what else they can ask us to do. So what they did here was to nearly take that first month and second month of payments. They put it in a amortization schedule for us, and they can basically ask one or two questions around it. So they could have said, okay, but what is that interest? How did you calculate that? Where is our payment that we calculated in question 23? So that interest component, remember, is again exactly what we did at the beginning of this section, where we said it is the 280,000 times your rate, which is 11%, and then you divide by 12, because we need to get to a monthly interest. So if we have 280,000 times 11% times 1/12, because we need to get the monthly interest. If we calculate that out, we will get 2566.67. Okay, so that is how we will get to that interest rate. Also, on your shelf calculator, it has a amortization function. So you can actually just follow these steps in setting up that, because the question that they are asking is which one of these are the correct amortization table for that first one. Okay, so the first thing we need to remember is our original principal was 280,000 that we borrowed, and not 350. So this one can't be. This one can't be. Then we've now showed that was my interest, but yeah, it's also, we've worked out the monthly payment. So this one is the correct beginning of a amortization table if I give us 4 options to do. Okay, but how you nearly do that is also by looking at that original information, put it into your sharp, and you will be able to calculate that first part of a table. Okay, so what they can also ask you is, so on that same information, they tell us after 5 years, the bank adjusts the interest rate to 15% per year, compounded monthly. What will the new monthly payment be if the other terms of the loan remain exactly the same? Okay, so now they tell us after 5 years, the interest for the last 2 years changes to 15% instead of the 11%. Okay, so what we will need to do is for that last period, we will need to change the interest rate. So the first thing that is important, we need to know after 5 years, so after 60 payments, what is my value after those 5 years? Okay, so again, using your Sharp or your HP with the information that we already have, we know that after the 60 periods, the balance that is left is 102,000. So at the beginning of that last 2 years, that will be my present value. I've got 2 more years left, which is 24 periods that's still left. My interest rate is now 15%. Remember, your future value will be 0. And then we can work out the PMT. The important thing is that future value that nearly in the end you need to say is 0. So present value of 102,864.47. We've got 12 times per year for 2 years, gives us for 24 months, 15% interest. And then if I work out my PMT, it gives me 4987.55. Okay, so that's very, very close. But what was important nearly is I've drawn a small timeline to nearly show what we are looking for. And very important nearly where you need to get this information. So we knew that in our amortization schedule that at the end of time 60, we will need to find out what our balance is at that stage. At that stage, it was 102,000. So we use that now as our present value for the last 2 years, where we will now change the interest to 15%. Our future value, we know at the end of our amortization period, will be 0. And then we can work out a new PMT that we can work with. Okay. This question 23, 24, 25 is very important in the sense how to work with amortization tables. And again, I will share more of this for you so that we can just make sure with the exam prep we cover enough of this. You won't get in an exam that there's suddenly 3 questions based on one answer, and if you got one wrong, you get everything wrong. So it will not be like that in the exam. Okay, in the assignments it's different because that's part of the practicing. But for your exam, there will not be something like that. It will be 3 individual questions. Okay, but I think this part of the amortization table is very important. But I will also share on the WhatsApp group some of those extra examples for you, but you can just practice that as well. Okay, and that is it for tonight. My voice is nearly totally gone, but just to recap nearly what's important of this study unit. So simple and compound interest. Simple, we will use Excel to calculate some of that. Compound, you can use Excel or your financial calculator. Then we looked at annuities, and we looked at where they give us information that we all need to work out the future value, the present value, or the monthly contributions. Then we looked at the first part nearly of amortization, and that is if we have a mortgage loan, what will be our monthly payments? And then we took it a step further to say, okay, but let's now, if we have a set of those monthly payments, we work with amortization schedule, and in there we nearly need to know exactly each component and how that was calculated. Okay, so that is this session tonight. What I will do from next week, we will start just going through previous papers, other prep work that we can just make sure you get enough prep for your exam. That's in roughly a month's time. Okay, thank you. Have a good evening, and hopefully my voice is better next time that you hear me. Have a good evening, Tobacco.
Thank you, Jen. Get well soon.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.